Also, folks normally assume that we work in rainforest conservation, and yes, that's a very important piece of what we do, but we have a broader mission, and it's around creating value for communities, mostly in the developing world, but not exclusively, so that they have incentives to conserve our natural resources, and that those are assigned a value. You know, someday those the ecosystem payment services will be more of a standard, but that's not happening now. So one way for us to reward producers for doing the right thing is to give them economic incentives towards more sustainable practices. So they're getting premiums if they follow certain principles, and they're getting recognition from the marketplace, and it has a lot of power. Rainforest Alliance is, you can move on to the next slide. Rainforest Alliance is an international organization, nonprofit organization, an NGO. We were founded in 1987, and we work in more than 70 countries today. It's changing all the time. We have certified about 60,000 farms. The majority of them are smallholders, so some may be 3 hectares, and some may be the size of the state of Rhode Island. And 3,300 forest operations. As a result, 180 million tons of CO2 have been sequestered. Actually, that is numbers related to 30 projects that we have in the current pipeline where we're measuring carbon sequestration. Rainforest Alliance, why do we do what we do? You can move on to the next one. I just want to encapsulate what the issues are here. 70 to 90% of deforestation today is due to agricultural conversion. So we decided to address agriculture. 20% of carbon dioxide emissions come from deforestation. 21% of the world's mammals and 12% of bird species are threatened or endangered. And forest conversion of forests to accommodate agriculture is the primary cause of deforestation. With current population growth, the global demand for food will increase by 50 to 60% by 2030, it's estimated. So these are the reasons we decided we had to address tropical commodities in agriculture. Next slide. So just, I'll gloss over this a little bit, but Rainforest Alliance developed a certification program based on 10 principles of sustainable agriculture. And this is implemented in more than 27 countries around the world. And we are in coffee, for instance. We have a very interesting project that is linking producers with markets around the world. And that is a 7-year, $12 million project funded by UNDP, and our goal at the completion of that project is to certify 10% of the world's production. And coffee is the largest traded commodity in the world after oil. So we have quite ambitious goals. In forestry, we're the largest certifier of forest lands to the Forestry Stewardship Council Standards, FSC, an organization which we helped to launch more than about 20 years ago. In tourism, we're working with the UN and other agencies to improve the sustainability, overall sustainability of the tourism industry, and to develop a sustainable tourism council, an accreditation body for tourism certifiers. And we have a nascent climate program where we're verifying forest carbon and developing methodologies for the measuring of carbon on farms, coffee and cocoa farms in particular, which are often agroforestry systems. Next slide. Another unique aspect of Rainforest Alliance's work and our standard is that it was developed in consultation with a group of NGOs. It's 9 NGOs, all in the developing world. They're national groups, and so they understand the local politics, the local laws, the cultural norms, and the realities of farming in the regions where they work. And so this group of NGOs, the Sustainable Agriculture Network, is responsible for developing, updating, field testing the standard, doing public consultation around the standard. And the standard is constantly evolving because the whole principle is continuous improvement, and farms are expected to demonstrate that year after year. We work across a range of crops. Actually, the standard applies to more than 200 crops, but we prefer to focus on the main commodities, main agricultural commodities like coffee, tea, cocoa, bananas. We have estimated, rough estimate that the value of just 3 commodities, we work with 3 main ones, which are coffee, cocoa, and coffee, cocoa, and bananas, is about $1 billion. So that's at point of sale. Next slide. And we never stop. You know, we are constantly looking at what are the emerging issues, and we thus developed standards for cattle, soy, palm oil, and sugar. And we address this a little bit differently than we do with some of the more consumer-friendly products like coffee and tea, where you can have a single product that has a nice little frog logo to identify it as sustainably certified. Consumers can look for it. You can direct consumers towards it. But soy and palm oil, for instance, are major drivers of deforestation and degradation in the tropics. And in, they're the fastest expanding probably of all the agricultural products due to the export drivers. There's a tremendous amount of growth and demand for palm oil and soy, which are ingredients in many, many, many different kinds of products, food products, cosmetics. In Indonesia and Brazil, palm oil plantations have been linked to devastating forest fires. So just touching upon some of the reasons we decided to address those crops. We're now also working on a certification program for cattle ranches, and that's nearing the end of the process. The public consultation process has just ended, and we'll go into field testing over the summer, and hopefully have our first certified beef before the end of 2010. Next slide. So I probably should have mentioned this little frog seal earlier in my presentation, but you will recognize it because it's on the packs of tea in the back of the room, and the cold tea and the hot tea packs. And it is a guarantee. When you see this mark on the product, it's a guarantee to consumers and to brands that that product is meeting very strict guidelines from the very beginning of the chain, of the value chain, which is the production. So we're looking at the land area, and we're looking at sustainable land management overall. Many of the farms that we work with are adjacent to protected areas, to parks. They form parts of wildlife corridors. And so we teach them how to become really good stewards of the land and to help connect forest patches where there's been deforestation, and to help restore wildlife populations where those have been in decline, and to not to contaminate the water sources. So agriculture is quite contaminated. To reduce dependency on agrochemicals and seek alternatives to toxic agrochemicals, and not to allow them to re-enter the ecosystem. So it's more than eliminating the worst practices, it's actually moving toward the highest standard, doing no harm and actually doing good. And we have social criteria as well, so we look at labor issues, wages, gender equality, and empowering women. We look at worker health and safety, occupational health. We look at education for children, access to health care, and all the basic human services. To the next one. And I'm going to skip this one because I think we're running out of time, but go on to the following one. I wanted to mention some of the impacts of our work. It's a lot of information in one slide, forgive me, but it's hard to resist sometimes. But what happens? People, you want to feel something tangible. What are the results? What did the farm look like before, and what happened afterwards? So some of the things we've seen on certified farms are higher productivity, increased yields on those farms. We've found increased access to potable water for the people who work on the farms. We've found in markedly higher rates of children in school. And more women empowered and having jobs of administrative jobs or jobs with greater responsibility and not just the lowest paid jobs. We're also in Assam, we are working with a local Indian conservation organization. It's called the Nature Conservation Organization, and with Unilever and the Ethical Tea Partnership to promote elephant conservation. So currently there's some competition between elephant habitats and tea production and worker housing, which is causing a lot of problems and not helping the elephants. So we're training the communities, and they're gaining knowledge about wildlife protection and valuing the elephants and learning how to live with them. Next one. So moving on to tea, because we're here to really highlight the partnership with Unilever and a partnership with tea, and I want to say that the work with Unilever has been truly transformative. Before we began collaborating with Unilever, we didn't certify a single tea estate, and we put our heads together and came up with this grand idea of transforming the industry. And Unilever took this big leap forward and said, we're going to be the first ones. And so broadly speaking, the tea industry is responsible for more than 2.4 million hectares of land where tea is grown, and the main countries are India, China, Kenya, Sri Lanka, Indonesia, Argentina, and Brazil. And some of the main issues in tea are low wages, prohibitions on organizing workers, organizing themselves, lack of adequate housing, limited access to health care, including HIV and AIDS treatment, lack of potable drinking water. And on the production side, there are all sorts of environmental issues: soil erosion, competition for water, pollution from fertilizers, and deforestation for firewood to fuel tea dryers. Tea dryers take a tremendous amount of wood fuel. Next one. So we began working with Unilever in 2006, and now we are present in several countries: Kenya, Tanzania, Argentina, India, Indonesia, and Malawi. We have already certified farms, or in the process of doing so, and we're working with more than 69 factories and estates covering 95,000 hectares. This is equal to, in aggregate, 190,000 tons of tea production, and it's impacting 170,000 workers. So very interesting numbers. Next one. And here you have just an illustration of the places where we're working in tea production. And the next one. Unilever's committed to scale up to 100% certified tea, so their entire supply chain, by 2015. And we've been working with other members of the Ethical Tea Partnership, so many big tea companies in the UK or global companies in moving their value chains towards sustainability. And next one. And just an anecdote, the first estate we certified in tea was in Kenya. It's the Kericho estate, and we love talking about it because it's just a beautiful place, and I think great stories. We found more than 100 bird species, so one of the things you have to do is document the species that are in and around the farm so that people who work there are aware of what kind of wildlife they're living in harmony with, hopefully. The estate plants 2 trees per employee every year. The populations of revert and red-tailed monkeys have increased due to the expansion of the forest, so the farm is involved in extensive reforestation efforts around the farm. Employees enjoy the full range of worker benefits. They get free company housing, state-subsidized schools, health care. Of course, this was in place even before the certification program, because we think it's a model that others should look to and follow. And that is the end of my presentation, but I hope it's been useful and that you've learned a little bit more about what we do and how we're trying to really connect people to the places where their food is grown, to the people who grow it, and have them, you know, more of this visceral connection to food instead of just having it sort of be, you know, this mystery. Thank you very much. It's my pleasure to talk with you.